Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome in to John's Cruise Recap. I'm going to talk about the cruise. I went out on 12 long days ago and just give everybody an update on kind of how that cruise went and what, if you're looking to cruise, what maybe you could expect on your next cruise. And hey, be sure to leave me a comment in the box there if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, and I will try to get to everybody's questions as soon as I can. So give everybody another 30 seconds or so here to get in before we get started. Got the Hawaiian shirt on today, reminiscing of 12 days ago when I walked on a cruise ship for the first time for me since January of 2020. It was actually the Carnival Breeze's first sailing in 15 months. So a lot of excitement on board and a lot of just very happy people in general. So if you're thinking about a cruise, be sure just to ask any questions you have. I'll be happy to answer them. And we'll just talk about what cruising looks like now in 2021, when we hoped, that this would be completely post-pandemic. Unfortunately, that's not the case. But let's talk a little bit about what the cruise looked like. I was going to film some of the embarkation, but forgot one important thing. You're not legally allowed to. The Department of Homeland Security forbids cameras inside of the terminals. But I will tell you, it was very, very smooth. I didn't know really what to expect, but I knew that I would have to show my vaccination card. And I did 3 times, along with my citizenship documentation. I have a passport. So every time I showed my passport, I had to show my vaccination card. And then right before, kind of odd to me, but right before we got on board was the temperature check station, where you went in and actually stood in front of a camera and they took your picture and it gave you a green thumbs up. So that all tested out normal. And then we were able to board. So when you're in the terminal, and this is true of airports, buses, planes, does not matter, you have to wear a mask at all times, and they are vigilant about it from the moment you walk into the terminal until we stepped on the ship. A couple of people pulled down their masks to wipe their nose, and they were immediately asked to put their mask back on. So, just be prepared for that during embarkation. Again, keep your passport, birth certificate, whatever you use to get on the cruise handy, along with that vaccination card, or there are other types of proof depending on the cruise line you're on, whether or not, what type of proof of vaccination you have to have. I was on a Carnival cruise, and Carnival is requiring vaccines for, I would say they would say for 95%, but I would say it was more like 99.5% of the people on the ship were fully vaccinated. Very few exceptions. Some of those exceptions are obviously medical reasons, religious reasons, or kids under the age of 12. That looked to be the majority of our exceptions on board. And I will say, from what I was told, there were less than 100 exemptions they didn't announce, but there were probably 2,600 people on the sailing, and less than 100 of them were not vaccinated. So if that's one of your concerns about whether or not you want to travel right now on a cruise, Carnival is requiring the vaccination. So we did all that. We walked through the terminal, we got on board. And once you get on board, it was, dare I say, it was actually surprisingly a normal experience. So I'm going to put up here now a little, some of the pictures that I took from the ship. We'll start the little slideshow here just so you can see kind of what everything looked like. Again, while we were on board, everything was normal. This was getting ready to go in the terminal. This is, of course, in your room. You get to unpack and do everything. We immediately got to go to our rooms, which was nice. As you can see, I am not covering my face. There is no mask required on board because everybody was fully vaccinated. My favorite part of the cruise, of course, the food. You'll see several pictures of that, along with pictures just of different areas of the ship. So the ship, again, was probably at about 60 to 70% occupancy. We estimated anywhere from 2,500 to 2,700. Don't make me do math, but the Carnival Breeze holds right at 4,000 guests at double occupancy. Could be a little more if you stack 3 and 4 to the room. So one of the things that was interesting to me is that the kids' camps were all closed. Normally, Carnival has Camp Ocean, which takes care of younger kids, allows parents some free time, and the kids really love it. But due to not being vaccinated and whatnot, they did not want to put the staff kind of in harm's way there. So there were no kids' clubs open on board. Buffets were also self-served for the most part, which was a little surprising to me. Although I will say that, especially on the second day going forward, I did notice some assistance being offered by staff, especially if there were two pans of something on the buffet. If there were, let's say eggs in one pan and sausage in another pan, the sausage was behind it. There was someone behind the counter who would offer to hand you the sausage versus you reaching across the eggs, so on and so forth. So all the staff was wearing masks. They were required to wear masks at all times. So that made a lot of people, I think, feel better too. This picture is as we were coming into Cozumel on Saturday of last week. This picture is at Mr. Sancho's Beach Club in Cozumel. So all in all, again, just a very normal experience. I did not experience what a lot of people had said on earlier sailings about people complaining about things. I will tell you the first night service was a little slow, which to me was to be expected. Number one, it's been 15 months. And number two, they're working with a lot of new staff. And it was my understanding that they had staff that was coming out of quarantine. I love that picture, by the way, of the sunset. The staff was coming out of quarantine. So there was some issues with having enough staff on the first night, but that seemed to really rectify itself on the other nights of the cruise. And I really didn't have a service problem. The first night, dining room service was kind of slow and things just felt a little awkward. But as far as the actual service, it was what you should expect on a cruise. It was impeccable. Everybody having a good time. Again, I didn't experience any of the things that some other people did. Complaining about things that weren't in their room or things that are ordinarily free. Everything was pretty normal. They had most of the experiences that they had. They have the theater shows. The piano bar, of course, was open. Punchliners Comedy Club was open. All the games and activities they do during the day were also there. So you could pretty much do what you would ordinarily do on a cruise. Now, when we got to Cozumel, that was a little bit different. The big difference for me in Cozumel was we were the only ship in port. Last time I was there were 4 other ships there. So you can imagine, you had 4 ships from between 2,500 and 5,000 guests in port at one time. So it was kind of crowded. But this time it was different. We were the only ones there. They were actually opening things up as we pulled up. If you've never been to Cozumel, when you get there, somebody was really, really brilliant. You have to walk through a huge store to get from one side of the port, the ship side of the port, into the actual port itself. You walk through this huge store where they're trying to sell you everything from jewelry to cigarettes to liquor to candy bars to any kind of candy you could imagine. So really some brilliant design on their part. So things were just opening up when we got there. We chose a non-Carnival sanctioned excursion. We went to Mr. Sancho's Beach Club, which is a great value. It's an all-inclusive beach club. You pay $60 and you get all you can eat, all you can drink. And you have time in the pool, time in the ocean. Any non-motorized water sports are included. So it's a really great place to go. We were in port, I think, from 9 to 4:30. So we spent about 5.5 hours at Mr. Sancho's and had a great time. So, but when you are in port in Cozumel, you do have to wear a mask. They were a little more rigid about it, frankly, than I thought they would be. So, they made sure that all their staff was wearing masks. And this was even if you went in the mini stores there, like Los Cinco Soles and all the T-shirt stores and whatnot, you did have to wear a mask. When you were in the taxi, you were supposed to wear a mask as well if you chose one of those excursions. At Mr. Sancho's, we wore a mask in, but once we were in kind of the open area with the pool and the bar, the swim up bar and the ocean and all that, you didn't really have to wear a mask when you're actively eating or drinking either. But other excursions, I heard that some of the Carnival excursions that were tours and whatnot, you did have to wear a mask. So I would just say to you that if you're planning a cruise or even an all-inclusive vacation, remember that when you are there, you are in a foreign country. So it's up to us as tourists to respect the wishes of the foreign ports. So we got there and again, it was no big deal to wear the mask for, I don't think I wore a mask for an hour total, walking off the ship to the taxi or walking back. I mean, I think it was, like I said, it couldn't have been more than an hour total. All the stores were open, but when we got back on the ship at 4:30, we only had one pier runner. For those who don't know what a peer runner is, go to YouTube and put in peer runner in the search and join all of us that laugh at people that are late getting back to the ship. But I will say the peer runner we had, she literally ran from the store back to the boat, which was probably about half a mile, and she was in full-fledged run for the entire time. So she's a track star, man. She made it back, and people don't realize that if the ship was scheduled to leave at 4:30 and you're not back and you're on a private excursion, the ship will leave you. So just put that in the back of your mind when you go on your next cruise. Hey, if it says be back here at 5 o'clock, we're going to be back here at 4:45 because we want to be on the ship. We don't want to be YouTube famous. You know, my goal on a cruise is to not end up on YouTube. That's the whole goal of that. So when we got back, it was so funny because we were all on the ship and we looked out and everything was closed. It was like we were never there. They were open just for us. They have ships coming in about, I think they said every other day right now. I know Carnival Breeze actually is just pulling out of there this afternoon. So, you know, that was the port experience. Again, masking. It was hot. I'm not going to lie to you. It was hot. It got a little uncomfortable at times, but it was great. It was as close to normal as we've had. And I will tell you that I felt just as safe or safer from a virus standpoint on board the ship as I do going to the grocery store, or, you know, if you get on an airplane or you get on a bus. You know, because again, that's what the vaccination requirement gives you, is it gives you the opportunity to feel kind of safe and secure. And that's why Carnival did it. So once we got back, disembarkation, there was nothing unusual at all. I mean, it was just the normal process. You can't bring back any live animals. And I go to the Bill Engvall rule with that. That means that somebody has attempted to bring a live animal back into the country. You also can't bring any fruits or vegetables in. So you have to go through a little custom screening with that. Those of us that had passports, we went to one side because they had our picture. The other side was the birth certificate. They make sure you are who you say you are when you get on and when you get off. One bit of confusion I had somebody ask me about, there is no testing requirement when you go on a cruise and return to the U.S. Unlike a trip on an airplane where you fly somewhere, right now, when you fly to a foreign country, vaccinated or not, before you can return to the United States, you have to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of returning. There is no such requirement on cruises. You just go and you're fully vaccinated and there's no testing. It's considered what we call a closed loop cruise. So that means it takes off and returns to a same U.S. port, or actually to a U.S. port. So there's no need for testing there. You will have to have either a passport or a birth certificate to board the ship. You have to have some proof of citizenship. You have to have a document that says you're a U.S. citizen. Sidebar right now, if you do not have a passport, it will very, very likely be the end of this year before you will get one if you applied today. You heard me right. They're running about anywhere from 14 to 24 weeks right now is a worst case scenario. So if you are planning a trip for the holidays, you got to pay to expedite that thing. It's an extra $60. Be sure to reach out. I'm happy to help you through that process if you don't have a passport. But if you're planning a cruise, it's a great alternative because you don't have to have one. You can just go with your birth certificate and a driver's license. You have to not only be a citizen, but you have to prove who you are. But it's no big deal. You literally show it to 3 people. They look at it, look at you, make you pull your mask down, make sure you are who you say you are, and you go from there. So embarkation, again, very smooth. Whole process from the time we walked out of our shuttle till we were standing on the gangway was probably less than 30 minutes. We did have an appointment time. It didn't really seem like they were following that very well. We got there about 30 minutes early and just kind of breezed through. And by the time we got to the front of the line, they were calling our number to go on board anyway. Just like boarding an airplane, everybody's got a boarding zone. One other experience for experienced cruisers that has changed. I forgot to mention this. So the muster drill is no longer the fiasco that it used to be. So if those of you who haven't cruised, this is, again, like the safety briefing for the airlines, right? Where the stewardess stands up there and looks ridiculous, pulling the thing to show you how to inflate your seat cushion and goes through that whole rigmarole. Well, in the past, They took all of us and they crowded us on the deck in our muster stations and did the whole presentation for us. Took 5 minutes. It took much longer to get everybody there than it did to actually do it. But now it's all done for the most part electronically. You watch a video on your app, report to your muster station. They show you how to tie off your life jacket in the event of an emergency, and you check in, they check you off, and you go about your day. A much smoother process, much easier. You can get it done much faster. So if you have a cruise planned in the next few months, my advice to you is do that first when you walk on. It's like a 1.5-minute video. Doesn't matter what line it is. Go check out at your muster station. Check in with the muster station captain, and then just go about your day, and it's done. You don't have to worry about it. No more waiting until 2:30 for a 3:30 pull away from port to do it. You do it on your time. So that was another thing I did want to mention for those who hate muster drill. It was a ridiculous experience before, but it's much better now. So most people like that. Again, there were no masks required on board. There were some people that were wearing them. They are highly recommended for anyone unvaccinated. But there was no requirement. The ship was at about 60% estimated capacity. Again, math is not John's strong suit, especially not at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I didn't have time to count and go, oh, there's 2,600 people. But that's kind of been where most of the sailings have been, around 60%. The food service was what it normally is. Like I said, although you did have assistance if things were too deep, you could ask for help getting the bread or whatever it was. They were happy to help you. Service was a little slow the first night, but it was definitely much better the second night. There were no kid activities on board, none of the kids club or Camp Ocean or any of that, but everything else was pretty much open. The nightclub was open, the piano bar was open, the Punchliners comedy was open, all the restaurants were open. And the sense I got from the cruise was everybody wanted to do all the things. And what I mean by that is it seemed like everybody was at the piano bar. You've seen a couple of the slides go by here, much more than normal. And everybody was in the comedy show, much more than normal. And all the restaurant reservations, there are some restaurants that you had to make reservations at. All of them were full for the most part. And then, just everything you kind of went to, with the exception of maybe the theater show, the 88 Keys show. I didn't see the other one. Most everything else is full, full within reason. There were no deck chair bandits in the morning, as we like to call them, where they're throwing stuff on a deck chair to try to stick with it and keep that deck chair for the day, even though that's a frowned upon practice. There was none of that because you didn't have to. Didn't really feel, the only time it really felt crowded was I felt crowded one time, and that was honestly getting off the ship. Felt a little crowded as we were leaving. But all in all, a great cruise. I was so thankful I got to go, and thanks to my buddy Jason for going with me. I was blessed to get to go and represent the travel agent world and just come back and tell everybody how awesome it was. And it was a great experience. That you will not lose anything if you've been on a cruise before. The experience is pretty close to what it was previously. If you have not cruised before, again, the experience was close to what it is normally, with less people and even more cleaning. That was another takeaway I had, folks, was there was somebody wiping things down and cleaning, and at every turn, it seemed like there was somebody with a sanitizer and a rag. There were hand sanitizer stations everywhere. Right by when you walked in to dine, there were people encouraging you to use them. Opportunities to wash your hands in multiple places. I say this without reservation. There will not be a healthier, cleaner, or safer time from a health perspective to take a cruise than in the next 12 to 18 months. It was as clean as you could expect. Cruises kind of have a reputation that's a little unfounded. And if you've never been on a cruise ship, don't buy into the whole Petri dish comment, because it is exceptionally clean, and outbreaks of disease are exceptionally rare, even with the COVID outbreak, still exceptionally rare. But that was my experience in a nutshell. I would do it again tomorrow if I could. I'd go on another cruise without hesitation. I would go on a cruise before I would get on an airplane and sit in an airport all day, or before I would sit in a train station all day. There's nothing quite like cruising. You've seen some of the food go by. It's not what people say about, oh, it's just, nasty buffet food. On this particular ship, there's three gourmet restaurants. There's, of course, a barbecue place. There's the main dining room. So there's plenty to eat and plenty to do. So I had a couple questions come in. Number one, what do I think cruising will look like early next year? Well, I don't know what cruising will look like in October. So there's no way to really tell just yet what cruising is going to look like next year. I will just say that my word of 2021 is flexible. Just be flexible and be prepared to wear a mask in some places. Yes, even in the next year, I think there will be certain destinations that we cruise to that will require a mask. Vaccinations have become, unfortunately, a hot button item, but I would expect the cruise lines to, at least, especially with this recent surge, I would expect them to keep these vaccine requirement protocols in place pretty much through the end of the year. Right now, they're through, I believe, most cruise lines are through August or September. Carnival's already whispering it's going to be through the end of October. So do not be surprised at all if these vaccine requirements extend to the end of the year. But other than that, I don't think we know exactly how this is going to play out. Will ships be back to 100%? Carnival says they're going to have 75% of their fleet back in service by the end of the year. That doesn't mean that the ships will be at 75%, but they will be back to 75%. So a couple notes about that from Carnival. They returned to New Orleans in early September and returned to Galveston Mobile in the end of October. I think it's October 21st for the Sensation. I believe it's September 5th. Yeah, September 5th, I believe, for the Glory out of New Orleans. Of course, they have other ships in operation right now. They have the Breeze and the Vista operating out of Galveston. The Vista does 7 days. The Breeze does the 4 and 5 day. They also do a 7 day as well. And then they are operating ships out of Port Canaveral. The long-awaited debut of Mardi Gras, the newest ship from Carnival, actually happens next week. So you may want to check that out if you're into the cruising thing. Lots of the cruise bloggers will be on that one. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave the roller coaster and the zip line for another time with Mardi Gras, but they'll sail next week, and then they're also sailing out of Miami. Royal Caribbean, same deal. They're sailing out of Florida ports. August 15th, they will sail Independence of the Seas out of Galveston as well. Galveston's a really nice port for Mid-Southerners, especially since you can get direct flights into Houston. It's about an hour south of Houston. You can fly to Houston relatively inexpensively on Southwest. So if you're thinking about a cruise and you've just done New Orleans enough and you want to do a little bigger and newer ship, then let's look at Galveston. Let's put Galveston on your radar. You have a little variety there too, because you also have Royal Caribbean. And then this winter, Norwegian will return to New Orleans as well. Norwegian actually launched their first ship yesterday in Greece. Norwegian Jade sailed out of Athens. So they are back in the game, and they are going to slow roll their ships out all across the U.S. As we move into later this year. Looking through here to see if I have any other questions. Here's another question. What about deals right now? Can I get a good deal on a cruise? The answer is it depends. It depends on the line, where you want to go, and how soon you want to travel. If you want to travel pretty soon, there are great deals to be found. Especially not even travel pretty soon, but if you're ready to book a cruise, now's the time, because you can lock in your pricing with the deposit. That's something a lot of people don't realize. When you book travel, and this is not just cruises, this is resorts, Disney, doesn't matter. You don't have to pay, if it's a $3,000 vacation, you don't have to pay for it all at once. You have, depending on what you book, between 30 and 90 days prior to departure to have it paid for. Disney is 30 days. Carnival, I think, is 30 days. I get Royal and Norwegian mixed up all the time. One's 45, one's 60 days. Most of your resorts are 30 days. Some of your other cruise lines are 90 days. So you don't have to pay for everything at once. That's the other thing that I like to encourage people about. You don't have to drop $3,000 for a vacation that you're not planning on until next summer. If you know, hey, my dates are from X to X, and I want to go from here to here, and I want to sail on this ship or on this line, then you can go ahead and book that with a small deposit per person, and then your pricing is locked in, and it doesn't matter what happens when cruising picks up even more and demand goes up even more and prices start to go up. I've noticed a slight decrease in pricing over the last couple of weeks, trying to encourage people to book for, obviously, if you can travel now, that's great. If you can't, then you can book for next year. But I will tell you, you still have, I mean, in Memphis and Shelby County, we have less than 2 weeks, but you still have time to at least sneak in a 4 or 5 day vacation on board a cruise ship out of Galveston, Miami, or Orlando. It's a great family vacation. It's safe. It's clean. And I can't stress those things enough. So that's going to do it for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And if you're watching this later and you have any questions or comments, just feel free to shoot me a message on one of the many platforms I'm on. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm fairly active on Facebook as well. Also, this is over on the YouTube page. If you stumble across it there and want to leave a comment or a question, just let me know. Or you can send me an email. My email address is down there, john@travelbyjohn.net. I do primarily cruises and all-inclusive resorts, but I can also help with Disney, vacation homes, things of that nature if you'd like. So that'll do it for today. Thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in. We'll do more of these as travel starts to pick up here this year. As always, if you have any travel questions, just reach out. But until next time, this is John saying see you later.